The bell above the cafe door jingled softly as I stepped inside, brushing off the chill of the early morning air. The familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and pastries greeted me, blending with the low hum of conversation that filled the cozy space. I spotted Alex immediately, sitting by the window in our usual spot, his laptop open and a cup of espresso already half empty. "Hey, you're early," I said, sliding into the chair across from him. He glanced up, his eyes bright with excitement. "Couldn't sleep," he replied, tapping his fingers restlessly against the ceramic mug. "I've been working on something big, something I've been wanting to tell you about." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That's so? Spill it." Alex grinned, leaning back in his chair with a dramatic sigh. "You're looking at the co-owner of a high-end interior design firm. We just signed the lease on our first office space last week." My eyes widened. "Are you serious? That's huge, man. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "It all happened so fast," he said, shaking his head. "One day it was just an idea. The next, we're sketching layouts and signing contracts." His excitement was infectious, and I found myself grinning right along with him. "Damn, Alex, I'm proud of you. I know how much you've wanted this." "Thanks," he said, his smile softening. "But there's a reason I called you here. Today." I tilted my head. "Okay, what's up?" He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I'm drowning, man. We've got clients coming in, projects stacking up, and I'm doing most of the planning and paperwork myself. Jordan's handling the finances and client acquisitions, but I could really use someone I trust with the day-to-day stuff." "Jordan?" I asked, vaguely remembering the name. "Your business partner?" "Yeah, you met him once. At my birthday party last year. Tall guy, dark hair, kind of intense." The memory flickered back, sharp suit, firm handshake, eyes that lingered a bit too long. "Right, I remember him. He seemed serious." Alex chuckled. "He's a good guy. Bit intense, yeah, but he knows what he's doing." He paused, taking a sip of his espresso before continuing. "Look, I know you're busy, but I thought maybe you could help me out for a bit, just until we get things running smoothly." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "You want me to work with you guys?" "Just part-time. A few days a week, helping me with project planning, maybe sitting in on client meetings. You're good with people, and you've got an eye for design." The idea simmered in my mind, and I couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement. "I mean, yeah, I'd love to help out. It sounds like you guys have something real going on." Alex's smile returned, wider this time. "You have no idea how much this means to me. I can't trust just anyone with this, you know?" "Hey, I'm in," I said, reaching across the table to shake his hand. His grip was firm and grateful. "Oh, and Jordan's coming by the office tomorrow. You'll finally get to meet him." "Properly," I nodded, not thinking much of it. Jordan was just a name, a face I vaguely remembered. I didn't know then how much that would change. The bell above the door chimed again, and Alex glanced at his watch. "I've got to run, meeting with a supplier." He stood up, patting me on the shoulder. "Tomorrow 9 a.m. Don't be late." I watched him leave, the door swinging shut behind him. I sat back, sipping my coffee, a sense of excitement creeping in. Helping Alex out sounded like a good idea, a great one even. But there was a part of me, small and almost unnoticeable, that couldn't shake the memory of Jordan's eyes that night at the party. Maybe it was just nerves, or maybe it was something else entirely. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a wide hallway lined with frosted glass panels. Sunlight poured through massive floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the polished concrete floors and clean white walls. Alex wasn't kidding. His new office space was stunning. All sleek lines and minimalist design. I could almost smell the fresh paint and ambition in the air. I stepped out of the elevator, glancing around until I spotted Alex waving at me from a glass-walled conference room. His grin was as bright as the sunlight streaming in. I waved back, making my way toward him, my shoes clicking against the hard floor. "There he is!" Alex called out, clapping me on the shoulder as I walked in. The space was open and airy, with minimalist desks arranged neatly in clusters and modern art pieces scattered tastefully along the walls. "You weren't kidding about the place," I said, letting out a low whistle. "This is incredible. Not bad, right?" Jordan's got an eye for design, Alex replied, nodding appreciatively at the layout. Speaking of which, he gestured toward a man standing near the window, phone pressed to his ear. That's him. Jordan turned around as if on cue, ending his call with a sharp flick of his thumb. He stepped toward us, and I was struck by just how different he looked up close. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with sharp features softened only slightly by a neatly trimmed beard. His dark eyes were piercing, sharp with intelligence and something else I couldn't quite place. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that clung to his frame like it had been made for him. And maybe it had. "Jordan, this is my best friend," Alex said, his hand gesturing between us. "The one I've been telling you about." Jordan's eyes fixed on mine, and I forced myself to extend a hand. His grip was firm, strong, and it lingered just a heartbeat longer than necessary. His gaze held mine, unflinching, steady. "Nice to finally meet you," he said, his voice smooth and deliberate. "You too," I replied, clearing my throat as I pulled my hand back. His touch had been warm, his skin smooth and well kept. I tried not to think about it as I shifted, my attention back to Alex. Alex patted my back. "I'm gonna leave you guys to it. I've got a meeting downtown, but Jordan will show you around, get you settled." He checked his watch, then looked up with a grin. "Don't let him boss you around too much," Jordan smirked, crossing his arms. "Only a little," he added, eyes still on me. Alex laughed, grabbed his coat and headed for the elevator, leaving me alone with Jordan. The room felt bigger, emptier somehow, as if the walls had stretched further apart. "Come on," Jordan said, gesturing for me to follow him. "I'll show you your desk and get you familiar with the setup." I trailed behind him, trying not to stare. Jordan walked with the kind of confidence that came naturally. Shoulders back, head high, every step deliberate. He led me to a polished oak desk near the windows. "This is yours. Good view, plenty of space. Hope you don't mind the sunlight." "It's perfect," I said, setting my bag down. "Definitely an upgrade from my usual." Jordan chuckled, the sound rich and smooth. "We like to keep things clean and organized here. Alex mentioned you're good with design plans and client meetings?" I nodded. "Yeah, I've done a bit of both. Mostly for small projects." "Good." He leaned against the edge of the desk, arms folded. His gaze didn't waver, like he was studying me. "We've got some big projects coming up. High-profile clients. Discretion and professionalism are important." I held his stare, refusing to flinch. "I can handle it." A slow smile spread across his face. "I don't doubt that." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of introductions, emails, and project overviews. Jordan was surprisingly attentive, always nearby, always watching. He offered me coffee twice, brought me copies of floor plans without me asking, and even pulled up a chair beside me during one of the client calls, leaning in close enough for me to catch his cologne, sharp, woodsy, intoxicating. Once or twice I caught him looking at me, his gaze lingering just a bit too long. His eyes would flicker away the moment I noticed, replaced by his usual businesslike demeanor. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was just thorough, paying attention to detail. Maybe he was just observant. Or maybe I was reading too much into it. By the time Alex returned that afternoon, Jordan had already briefed me on half a dozen projects and even set up a shared calendar on my desktop. "You two got a lot done," Alex commented, looking impressed. "Jordan's a good teacher," I replied, catching his eye. Jordan simply smirked, giving me a nod of approval before turning back to his own work. I left the office that day feeling accomplished but strangely unsettled. My mind kept replaying the firm grip of Jordan's handshake, the way his eyes seemed to linger, the way he stood just a little too close. I brushed it off as overthinking, but deep down I knew I'd felt something, and I wasn't sure what to do about it. The office felt different without Alex's presence, quieter, almost hauntingly still. The glow from the city lights outside spilled through the glass windows, casting long shadows across the polished concrete floor. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound, a soft whisper beneath the silence. Jordan sat across from me at the long conference table, sleeves rolled up, his tie loosened slightly. His hair, always perfectly styled, now had a slightly tousled look to it, as if he'd run his hands through it one too many times. He leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against the table as I finished going through the budget reports. "Almost done?" he asked, voice smooth and low, cutting through the silence. "Almost," I replied, highlighting the last few lines on the spreadsheet. I glanced up to find him watching me, his eyes sharp and focused. He didn't look away, and I found myself holding his gaze a beat longer than I should have. "You're good at this," he remarked, leaning forward and resting his elbows on the table. Alex wasn't exaggerating. I shrugged, setting my pen down. "I guess I have a knack for numbers. Comes in handy sometimes." His lips curled into a half smile. "More than just sometimes, I'd say." I felt warmth creep into my cheeks and looked back down at the papers, pretending to shuffle them around. "Well, I appreciate the compliment." Jordan straightened, stretching his arms above his head. The fabric of his shirt pulled taut across his chest, and I quickly looked back at the spreadsheets before I could be caught staring. "You want a drink?" he asked suddenly, standing up and heading towards the corner of the office where a glass cabinet held a variety of bottles and crystal glasses. I blinked. "We have alcohol here?" He chuckled, already reaching for a bottle of whiskey. "We have clients that like to celebrate deals. Why not enjoy it ourselves?" He poured 2 glasses, the amber liquid glimmering in the low light. He returned, sliding one across the table to me. I hesitated for a moment before picking it up. "To late nights and closed deals?" I offered, raising my glass. Jordan's eyes sparkled with something I couldn't quite place. "To good company," he corrected, his voice softer now. Our glasses clinked, and I took a sip, the warmth of the whiskey spreading through my chest. For the next hour, work faded into the background. We talked about everything and nothing, the madness of the city, our favorite movies, even embarrassing high school stories. Jordan was surprisingly easy to talk to, his sharp exterior softening with each drink. His laugh came more frequently, genuine and unguarded. At one point, I mentioned a project I'd worked on back in college, something small but memorable. Jordan leaned back, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "You know, I pegged you as someone who'd be good at this. Turns out I was right." "Good at what?" I asked, tilting my head. He gestured around the room. "This, handling business, seeing the bigger picture." He paused, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my heart skip. "You're sharp. Alex is lucky to have you." For a moment, I was struck by how different he seemed from our first meeting. The formality was gone, replaced with something softer, more genuine. I smiled, feeling a flutter of something I couldn't quite place. We fell into silence after that, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable, just thoughtful. I glanced at the clock and nearly jumped. Wow, it's past midnight. Jordan raised an eyebrow, looking genuinely surprised. "Guess I lost track of time." I stood, stretching out the stiffness in my back. "I should probably get going. Early start tomorrow." He stood with me, setting his glass down on the table. "I'll walk you out." I opened my mouth to protest, but thought better of it. We walked through the empty office, the lights dimmed, our footsteps echoing off the walls. When we reached the elevator, I turned to thank him, but the words died in my throat. Jordan was standing close, closer than I realized. His hand rested on my shoulder, warm and steady. His eyes searched mine, and for a brief, electric moment, the world felt very small, like it was just the two of us, the two. I swallowed hard, the air between us thick with something unspoken. "Thanks for staying late," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. His hand lingered, fingers brushing just slightly against the back of my neck. My breath caught, and I managed a quick nod. "Yeah, sure." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, breaking the spell. I stepped inside, turning to face him as the doors began to close. Jordan's eyes never left mine, his hand slipping away at the last second. I watched him as the doors slid shut. The image of his gaze burned into my mind. As I rode the elevator down, my heart pounded against my ribs. The warmth of his touch still tingled across my skin, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something between us had shifted. something I wasn't sure I was ready to understand. The drive to the client meeting was smooth and uneventful, punctuated by the soft hum of the car engine and the occasional hum of conversation. Jordan drove with practiced ease, one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting comfortably on the armrest between us. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and a watch that glinted with every turn of the wheel. I found myself glancing his way more than once, catching the sharp line of his jaw, the way his fingers drummed absently when he paused to think. "You ready for this?" he asked, catching my gaze just before I could look away. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, of course. It's just a meeting." He chuckled, eyes back on the road. "It's a pretty big one. If we land this, it'll be our biggest project yet." "No pressure," I laughed, shaking my head. "You're really good at the pep talk," he smirked. "Just keeping you on your toes." We reached the client's office, an imposing glass structure downtown that seemed to scrape the sky. Jordan slipped effortlessly into business mode, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries, and guiding the conversation with the kind of ease that came with experience. I followed his lead, contributing where I could, but mostly watching in quiet admiration. The meeting lasted 3 hours, and by the end of it, I was drained. But we'd done it. We'd landed the project, and the handshake from the client was firm and final. As we left the building, Jordan clapped me on the back. "You did good," he said, his smile genuine. I grinned back, still riding the high of success. "Couldn't have done it without you." We made our way to the hotel, a towering structure of luxury and elegance that gleamed against the skyline. Jordan checked us in, handing me a key card with a grin. "We've earned a drink, don't you think?" "More than one," I replied, pocketing the card. The hotel bar was low-lit and luxurious, all dark wood and velvet seating. Jazz music floated lazily through the space, and the clink of glasses and low murmurs of conversation added to the atmosphere. Jordan found us a corner booth away from the bustle and ordered us 2 whiskeys before I even had the chance to look at the menu. "2 successful business ventures," he toasted, raising his glass. "And good company," I added, clinking, my glass against his. We drank, and the burn was smooth, settling warmly in my chest. Conversation came easily, stories from college, old jobs, embarrassing moments that neither of us had thought to share before. Jordan was surprisingly funny, his sharp edges softened by laughter and good whiskey. I found myself leaning back, more comfortable than I'd been in ages. "You know, you're not as scary as I thought you were," I admitted, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. Jordan arched an eyebrow. "Scary?" I laughed. "A little bit. You're intense. First time we met, I thought you were gonna fire me just for existing." He chuckled, the sound rich and genuine. "Guess I can come off a little strong." "A little?" I teased, and he rolled his eyes, taking another sip. We ordered another round, then another. The hours melted away, the bar crowd thinning until only a few stragglers remained. I didn't notice how late it had gotten until I glanced at my watch. "Wow, it's nearly 2. Jordan leaned back, stretching his arms across the back of the booth. "Time flies when you're having fun." I couldn't argue with that. We stepped out into the hallway, the plush carpet muffling our footsteps as we made our way to the elevators. The whiskey buzz hummed pleasantly beneath my skin, and Jordan walked close beside me, his shoulder brushing mine with every few steps. The elevator doors slid open and we stepped inside. It was just the 2 of us, silence stretching comfortably between us. Jordan leaned back against the mirrored wall, hands in his pockets. His gaze settled on me, steady and unflinching. "What?" I asked, half laughing, half nervous. He shrugged, a small smirk playing at his lips. "Nothing. You're just different outside the office." I raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" He paused for a moment, his eyes still fixed on me. "Lighter, less guarded." The elevator chimed, and the doors slid open. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stepped out, Jordan following right behind me. Our rooms were side by side at the end of the hallway, and we walked in silence until we reached my door. I fished out my keycard, turning to face him. "Well, thanks for tonight. I had a good time." Jordan took a step closer, the space between us shrinking. His eyes searched mine, and for the first time I saw something unguarded in his expression. Curiosity, maybe even longing. He reached out, his hand brushing my shoulder, lingering there as his thumb traced a small circle. My breath hitched, and the air felt heavier, thicker. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Did you really think I was that scary?" I let out a breathless laugh. Maybe a little. His eyes darkened, and for a second I thought he might close the distance, that his hand would slide from my shoulder to my cheek. But I took a step back, fumbling for the door handle. Jordan's hand dropped to his side, his expression flickering with something I couldn't quite read. Disappointment, maybe. "Good night," he said softly, his voice careful. "Good night," I replied, slipping into my room before I could say anything else. I leaned against the door after it clicked shut, my heart pounding. I didn't know what I was feeling, only that it was there. Sharp, electric, impossible to ignore. And I had a feeling that whatever it wasn't going away anytime soon. The office was quiet, the usual buzz of phones and footsteps replaced with silence. Alex had left hours ago, off to celebrate with his family after the successful project launch. His parting words had been a quick, "Lock up if you're the last one out," followed by a slap on the back and a wide grin. That left just me and Jordan, shadows stretching long across the polished concrete floor as the sun dipped low behind the skyline. I sat at my desk, finishing up some last-minute emails, but my eyes kept drifting to the glass-walled office across from mine. Jordan sat inside, his head bent over some paperwork, pen gliding smoothly across the page. I tried to focus, tapping at my keyboard, but my concentration wavered. It had been this way for weeks now, an electric undercurrent that hummed between us, growing stronger with each passing day. I'd catch him watching me during meetings, his gaze lingering a bit too long, his smile just a little too knowing, and I hadn't stopped thinking about that night in the hotel hallway, the way his hand had lingered on my shoulder, the way his eyes had darkened just for a moment before I'd pulled away. I saved my work, shutting my laptop and leaning back, in my chair. The office was drenched in the warm glow of sunset, and for a second I let my eyes close, soaking in the quiet. "You heading out?" Jordan's voice pulled me back, and I opened my eyes to find him standing in my doorway, one hand braced against the frame, the other tucked casually in his pocket. I cleared my throat, sitting up straighter. "Not yet. Just finishing up." He nodded, stepping inside. His gaze swept the room before landing back on me. "You did good today." Alex was impressed. I smiled, shrugging it off. "Couldn't have done it without your help." He chuckled, crossing his arms over his chest. "You sell yourself short." I looked down at my desk, a laugh bubbling up before I could stop it. "Maybe." A pause stretched between us, heavy and charged. I looked back up, and his eyes were on me, sharp and searching. He took a step closer. "Can I ask you something?" I swallowed, nodding. "Yeah, sure." He leaned against the edge of my desk, close enough that I could catch the scent of his cologne, woodsy and sharp, like cedar and smoke. That night at the hotel, was I imagining it? My heart thudded in my chest, loud enough that I was sure he could hear it. "Imagining what?" His eyes flickered, jaw tightening just slightly. "The way you looked at me, the way things felt." I opened my mouth to respond, but the words got stuck. I had no idea what to say, because the truth was, I hadn't been imagining it either. Jordan straightened up, his hands braced on the edge of the desk as he leaned in just a little closer. His voice dropped to a whisper, low and rough. "I haven't stopped thinking about it." The air between us went still, thick with anticipation. My eyes locked on his, and I saw it clearly now, the want, the unspoken tension simmering beneath. The surface, barely held back. "Jordan," I started, but his hand came up, fingers brushing lightly against my cheek, and whatever I'd been about to say disappeared. His eyes searched mine, waiting, giving me the chance to pull away. But I didn't. I couldn't. Before I knew what I was doing, I leaned forward, closing the distance between us. His breath caught, and then his lips were on mine, soft, insistent, and everything I hadn't realized I'd been craving. The kiss deepened, his hands sliding to the back of my neck, fingers tangling in my hair. I felt the edge of the desk press against my hips as he stepped closer, his body warm and solid against mine. The room seemed to fade away, replaced only by the sensation of him, his hands, his mouth, the way he tasted of whiskey and something darker. I pulled back just enough to catch my breath, our faces inches apart. His eyes were dark, intense, and locked on mine. "I've wanted this since the first time I saw you," he confessed, his voice raw and low. The words sent a thrill through me, and I realized, with startling clarity, that I'd been wanting the same thing. Maybe I'd known it all along. My hands found his shirt, fingers curling into the fabric as I pulled him back in. The kiss deeper this time, more desperate. His hands were everywhere, my shoulders, my back, his touch setting my skin on fire. Felt inevitable, like we'd been building to this moment for weeks, maybe months, and I couldn't bring myself to stop. We finally broke apart, breathing heavily, faces still inches away. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine for any trace of regret. He wouldn't find any. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost uncertain. I nodded, brushing my fingers against his jaw. "Yeah, I'm good." He smiled, a real one, not the businesslike grin he wore for clients. This one was genuine, and it warmed something inside. Me, I hadn't even realized was cold. The clock on the wall ticked softly in the background, and I glanced up, noticing just how late it had gotten. "I should probably get going." His smile faded just a bit, but he nodded. "Yeah, probably." But he didn't move, and neither did I. For a long moment we just stood there, his hand still resting on my waist, my fingers brushing his jaw. The tension hadn't gone away. It had only settled deeper, more permanent. When I finally pulled away, his eyes followed me to the door. "See you tomorrow?" I turned back, catching his gaze. "Yeah, tomorrow." I left the office with my heart racing and my mind spinning, the memory of his touch still warm on my skin, and I knew there was no going back now. I woke up to sunlight spilling through the blinds, pooling across my bed in warm, golden light. I lay there for a moment, blinking against the brightness, my mind still caught in the haze of sleep. But then it hit me. Last night. My breath caught, and I sat up abruptly, the sheets slipping from my shoulders. My heart pounded as fragments of the evening rushed back. Jordan's hand on my cheek, his lips against mine, the way he had looked at me, raw and unguarded. I dragged my hands down my face, leaning back against the headboard. What the hell had I done? My phone buzzed on the nightstand, its screen lighting up with a text from Alex. I reached for it, the weight of reality settling heavily in my chest. "Alex. Drinks tonight? Celebrating the project. Me, you, and Jordan. 7 p.m.? My stomach twisted. Jordan. I hadn't even thought about what it would be like to see him again. To be around him and Alex, knowing what had happened, knowing what we did. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the keys. Finally, I typed out a quick response. "Me. Yeah, I'll be there." I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. My apartment was eerily quiet, only the soft hum of the refrigerator cutting through the silence. I forced myself out of bed, my limbs heavy, and shuffled to the bathroom. I stared at my reflection, eyes slightly bloodshot, hair a mess. I splashed cold water on my face, hoping to shake off the fog of confusion clouding my thoughts. I didn't regret what had happened. I couldn't bring myself to. But I also knew it wasn't simple. Jordan was my best friend's business partner. Hell, he was practically family to Alex. I took a deep breath, gripping the edge of the sink. "Get it together," I murmured to my reflection. But my reflection didn't seem convinced. The bar was loud, filled with the hum of conversations, and the clinking of glasses. I spotted Alex almost immediately. He was at the back, laughing with Jordan at a high-top table, 2 drinks already in front of them. My heart lurched at the sight of him. Jordan was dressed sharply as always, his sleeves rolled up just enough to show a hint of muscle. He looked relaxed, entirely at ease, his hand clapping Alex's shoulder as they laughed over some shared joke. I forced my feet to move, weaving through the crowd until I reached their table. Alex saw me first, his grin widening. There he is, just in time. Jordan turned then, his gaze meeting mine. For a heartbeat, the noise of the bar seemed to fade, and all I could hear was the rush of blood in my ears. His expression didn't falter, not for a second. He just smiled that smooth, effortless smile and raised his glass. "Glad you made it," he said. I nodded, slipping onto the bar stool next to Alex. "Wouldn't miss it," Alex laughed, clapping me on the back. "We're celebrating, man. Big project, big win. I couldn't have done it without you guys." I forced a smile, my eyes flickering to Jordan. He was watching me carefully, his expression relaxed, but his eyes sharp. I tried to focus on Alex, but every time I glanced away, I could feel Jordan's gaze on me, steady, unyielding. Alex called the bartender over, ordering another round, and I turned to find Jordan's eyes still on me, his glass raised just slightly. When our eyes met, something flickered across his face, something dark and knowing. My chest tightened, and I looked away quickly, my fingers drumming against the wood of the table. My mind raced with thoughts I couldn't quite catch. Was it all in my head? Had last night meant something to him? Or was it just a thing that happened? Jordan seemed perfectly fine, laughing with Alex, making jokes, his hand occasionally brushing against mine when he reached for his drink. Each touch sent a jolt through me, and I struggled to keep my composure. It wasn't until Alex got up to take a call, leaving us alone at the table, that Jordan leaned in, his voice dropping just low enough that only I could hear. "You good?" I swallowed, forcing a nod. "Yeah, I'm good." His eyes didn't waver. "You sure?" I looked at him then, really looked at him. There was no hint of regret in his gaze, just curiosity, maybe even a flicker of something more. "Yeah," I said again, my voice firmer this time. "I'm sure." He held my gaze for a moment longer before leaning back in his chair, his expression satisfied. "Good," Alex returned, sliding back into his seat with a grin. "What did I miss?" "Nothing," Jordan said smoothly, his eyes still locked on mine. "Just catching up." I laughed along, forcing it to sound natural. But the weight of what had happened, what was still happening, lingered between us. And I knew. This was just the beginning.